Hey, good morning, San Diego. Good to have you here. Of course, co-hosting with me, Daniel Lehman. I'm your host, Craig. So we've got a good show lined up, man.
As always, when do we not have a good show lined up? There's so many great people in the community for us to talk to in the realm of serving veterans and educating veterans. We're in a good spot.
Makes our jobs easy.
Very easy.
A lot of fun at Mad Men that we did, a week or so ago, where we promoted the two charities of the Rosie Network and the STEP program. Raised a lot of money. I mean, tens of thousands, maybe six figures. I don't know. They're still tallying up the numbers, but that was a lot of fun. I was able to MC that. Daniel, did you win the... I didn't understand your text message. Did you win the dinner?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a long story.
Is this one of those things where the wife is not happy with you? I dropped a lot of money at that thing.
Yes.
Yes, got it. All right, sensitive territory.
It's for a good cause.
Man, we had a lot of fun. I love emceeing those events because the people of the military community are so fun to be around. They're just amazing people, and the people that support these charities are just phenomenal. We got to remember, like, the people that you see on this show or that we do these charity things for, they're charities. These aren't what people make their money on. So you're taking people out of what they do for a living, and they do it out of passion. And I watch them put these things together, and it's just phenomenal how our San Diego comes together for the veterans community. It doesn't even get paid to do it.
There's a definite concept of the same things that make people go and serve their country in the first place. Once they get out, they continue to serve their community, especially within the veterans community, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, let's dive into it. We got authors, founders of charities. We got the Eve Nasby joining us. So you ready to get this thing started?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get this show started. And now joining us in studio, he served in the Navy. He is the founder of Workshop for Warriors, Hernán Luis Prado. Prado. Close. I tried. I'm so white it hurts. I gave it my best shot. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, you want to tell people what
No,
your name is?
I don't want to make you feel bad.
Yeah, since I've butchered it. All right. Well, good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service on behalf of all of us. Let's talk about the Workshop for Warriors. I know you have a lot of passion around this. Let's first learn what it is.
Well, thanks. So Workshops for Warriors is the only accredited school in the nation that trains, certifies, and places veterans, wounded warriors, and transitioning service members into advanced manufacturing careers. And we do this at no cost and with no support from local, state, or federal funding at all.
When did you guys, so no federal funding? So this is all money that you raise out of the private sector, the free marketplace?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Private philanthropy, individual donors, and
awesome.
big organizations that are interested in what we're doing.
Anytime there's a serviceman, we were just talking before the show. There's or we were talking in the opening segment. There's a desire for people who sign up to serve in the first place to continue service after they get out. So what's kind of the story behind Workshops for Warriors? How did it come about? There's always a story, right? There's always something that happened that made you want to...
Well, I agree. It's, it's always something important, right? When you're in the Marine Corps or the military, you're always, invincible and nothing could ever happen to you. And I think my pivot point or my inflection point came when I had just come back from Iraq, and one of my friends, so I was on active duty, and one of my friends who I served with when I was enlisted, and then I was an officer later, so fast forward 10 years, and I was in Iraq, and I came back and I saw this friend of mine, and we'd just seen each other in Iraq, and fast forward, we're at this little shopping mall in Washington, D.C. called Montgomery Mall, and my wife and I are there, and I see my friend roll up, and he says, "Hey, Hernán, how you doing? Would you come to my wedding this Friday?" And I look at him and I said, "Well, of course," right? But in my mind, I knew that we had just talked in Iraq, and he said that he was going to get married next year. I said, "Sure, of course, John, no problem." And I said, "Why don't you get up and give me a hug, man?" And he said, "Well, I can't, Doc." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And that's when it hit me. I looked down and he didn't have his legs anymore. And that was, there always come these moments in your life where you think you were going to do things a certain way, or you think a certain way, and you have kind of your life planned out, and in my mind, it was like secondary detonations. I guess saw and realized the long-term ramifications of all the things that I knew he wanted to do that he wasn't going to be able to do anymore. And I was trying to keep my composure, and I turned to him and said, yes, of course I'll be there this Friday. And then he rolled away with his fiance. And I guess here I was, this tough guy, combat vet, 3 tours, and I literally sank to the ground in the middle of this mall and was grabbing onto my wife. And as I was just going down, I said, we're gonna sell everything we have, and we're gonna do something. And we sold both of our houses in McLean, Virginia, all the cool guy things that I had amassed over 11 years of being a dink. And to my amazing luck and fortune, my wife, who's a godsend, Rachel, thank you, said, we're going to sell everything and do this. And she said, of course we will.
Wow.
Of course.
Now, you mentioned Virginia. So you came to San Diego?
Actually, I started in Virginia when I was working at the Vice President's residence in Washington, D.C., but I was going to National Naval Medical Center almost daily. So I started it when I was at National Naval Medical Center, but then we got moved since then probably 6 different times. So every time I'd go, and I started off as, it wasn't nearly as big or as complicated as it is now. At first I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but it wasn't nearly as formal as it is now. The idea back then was just to help and provide an outlet for people that, mainly Marines, right? Marines don't do well sitting down, right? So if you tell a Marine, a combat wounded Marine, you're gonna sit in that bed 23 hours a day waiting for your 1 hour of physical therapy. Oh, and by the way, your 19-year-old spouse is on the other coast with your kid, and all those things that you think might be happening to her, they might be. But you'll be going home next week, kid, next week. Do that for 50 to 70 weeks and see how many of those guys survive.
Yep.
So the idea was to, they'd say, hey, Doc, how are you? And I'd say, great, great. They said, hey, what are you doing? And I'd invite them over to my house. And as you know, Marines don't come alone. And before you knew it, we had like 10, 15 Marines over at the house. And we just kind of congregated in the garage. And that's what I saw. Now, they like doing that. And my wife, who's the smartest woman I know, said, hey, maybe there's something we can do that resonates with them, that's something that they can take with them, that's credentials, something that they have in their hands.
So what does that look like now? How does it work with Workshops for Warriors?
Well, now we have over an acre of land on Main Street, San Diego, $6 million worth of cutting-edge equipment and manufacturing. And like literally unbeknownst to us, in typical like dumb luck Marine fashion, right? We just wound up being at the right place at the right time, that we have 2.3 million advanced manufacturing jobs unfilled due to lack of skilled labor. And you have 1 million talented service members leaving the service in the next 5 years. We've been doing this since 2008, and we see this massive influx. We have over 550 people on a waiting list for 50 spots and 2,500 job openings for every graduate.
So you shared with us the inception of this story, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Since then, you've obviously done some great things. Can you share some of the success stories you've had?
Of course, yes. So part of the things that we've done, I like the tangible stories of, like we've had a young gal, her name is Angie, and she had 2 small kids, but she left the Army and she had some significant issues getting out of the Army, and she was homeless. She lost custody of her kids. She started having dependency issues, and she came to our school and she said, "That's the first time I found hope." And after 16 weeks in our program, she was able to get a job, pays $22 an hour, got a lease, and was living with her family for the first time in 5 years. I mean, that's the type of impact that we provide. We have 100% placement and retention for every one of our graduates since 2008 at a minimum of $18 an hour. So that's the impact that we have. And those stories are the backbone of our organization.
Well, I appreciate you coming here and sharing all this, and I'd like to talk with you further. Unfortunately, we're getting the wrap sign from our producer, but if we go online, can we help civilians, those who have served? Just visit online. Is there a lot of good information there for us to follow through?
WFWUSA.org, that's workshopsforwarriors.org, and you'll see, and we have all of our audited financials online. Everything's paid for. 88% of all monies donated to us goes straight to training programs. 88%.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming in here and sharing the story with us.
Thanks for having me.
And the fact that you were able to turn that moment into something special, not to mention all that you gave up to do it, inspirational. Thank you.
Well, one thing that I'd just like to point out, it's not me. I think the country is in need and wants to do something that's bigger than us. And I think this is one of those great opportunities where we've really been fortunate to have so many great organizations and people just kind of align and we're all walking forward together.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
All right,
having
more
me.
of Operation American Dream coming up next. And now joining us in studio, not just Eve Nasby, the Eve Nasby. Good to have you here.
It's great
And
to
a
be back.
special
Greg.
guest,
Thank
Celeste
you.
Blodgett, and you are the VP of HR with ESET.
Is
That's
that your
correct.
Twitter handle? Is it the Eve Nasby?
No, any more than that's the amazing Craig Sewing. No,
It
it's not
actually
the-
does say the Craig Sewing on my coffee mug.
The Craig saying.
So how narcissistic is that, people?
Autographs after the show. Right?
Maybe.
But it'll cost you.
As long as I get invited to your event, which
All right,
apparently I
I'm
will.
coming to your event, so I'll let you in.
So talk to me. You are with Daniel on Military Mondays.
Yes.
We should always mention that Daniel hosts a radio show on 1170 AM KCBQ, Military Mondays, 6 p.m. Eve, you're hosting the 7 o'clock hour.
I am.
Brave Radio.
Yes.
Yeah,
Brave Radio
very
hour.
cool.
In conjunction with Military Mondays.
And how's it going? How's the
Great.
show?
He's amazing. Love the show. Love
He's
having great
amazing.
people. He is. He does the first
Just
half.
getting
I get
showered
to
with
follow.
compliments.
And then we bring on great people like Celeste. She's been on the show talking about why ESET wants to hire veterans. And I love her attitude. She debunks all the myths of, oh my gosh, if I hire a veteran, they might have PTSD. They might, do something that we don't want them to do in the office. Eh?
Explain what ESET is first.
ESET is an antivirus software company. So basically, we keep you safe online so that the bad guys can't steal your information and your personal data.
Wow, we were just talking about that earlier this week on The American Dream, which is the show that leads up to this. Cyber crime, I got my social media hacked this week. Now, I've had
did?
my checkbook hacked. I think everybody has probably experienced some form of identity theft.
Right.
But I was so ticked off this week when someone hacked my social media account because they put words on there I would have never used. That's
Right.
brand tarnishment. I was ticked. So I'm sure what you guys do really protect some stuff like that.
Absolutely. That's
Very
right.
important, man. And then plus cybersecurity. I mean, this is a global issue.
It is.
Really, especially when you're in an asymmetric war.
Right.
So, Eve, explain what you do again, and it's
Yeah.
explain how it all gels.
Yep. So we are owned by we're a veteran-owned company. We're the largest in the United States of America, and we place veterans at great companies like ESET. So we also train. So a lot of what you do to educate in the sales arena, we do on the HR
You
side.
call me a salesman now?
No, educating salespeople. Your event's called
Oh, the real estate sales.
Sales
yes,
Mastery
we do. May
2016.
26th, if you've served
I know.
if you serve in real estate, not serve. I'm so used to military
served in
talk now. If you serve
done
in
your
real
duty.
estate, I mean, what a badge of
tough,
honor.
rough.
Yeah. The passing that course was really challenging. You get it. Keep going. But anyway.
So that's what we do. We take great veterans, we put them in great companies. We also educate companies around why you should hire veterans, and we debunk the myths around PTSD. We talk about all the positive things they bring to the table.
You take
So cool.
what if they have PTSD, what if they have issues, and you change it to what if they're the best employees that you've ever hired.
And they will be.
And they will be.
They learn twice as fast. They outperform their peers 2 to 1. I'll stop talking.
Yeah,
Why don't
no,
you
well,
tell
here's
about the
something,
influence?
Celeste.
Why
Prove the
should we
point.
even have
Share
that?
some real examples of some
Sure.
success stories.
Absolutely. Well, we have fantastic employees at ESET that have the veteran status, and they show up on time, they're professional, they work hard, they're meticulous. In a crisis, they're the ones that are calm, they deal with the customers in a very calm manner. So I am surprised by that phrase because I personally have never even thought about it when hiring a veteran. And I don't know why we should actually even discriminate, to someone else that hasn't served. Someone else has emotional issues. Should we label that person? I mean, I don't know. I find that
Everybody has strengths and weaknesses.
That's right.
Daniel, outside of this show, you run a very successful mortgage company helping those who have served. That's where what I did in a former life. And I remember every time I had a military client, it was the best client of all the clients we had because everything came through so organized. They were
That's
so
right.
respectful. When we did a great job, they referred us. And you're still doing this every single day.
Best clients.
By
period.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's there's things that, and Daniel having served, certain things that you learn in the military that can obviously transfer very well when you talk about
Agreed.
a career. Is that
Not,
fair?
not something, there's nothing really so chaotic that you can't handle. If you're trained to be able to operate in chaos in a situation
right.
where you've got a workplace emergency, it's not so much of an emergency and you can kind of keep a cool head. And
That's
also
right.
just being very tactical about things, right? About taking a goal and working backwards
That's
and
right.
tactically moving forward in a way that
You're
makes
very
sense.
strategic.
Well, and
Well, you know,
there's-
he's explaining before the show how he's modeling his team, and he's sitting here. I mean, we got real evidence. He's like, "Look at what we're doing at Synergy One Lending," and he's penciling
Right.
all this out. I was like, "I don't care, man."
And I think culturally, too, they make a great fit to any organization because they're the first to volunteer for
That's
stuff.
right. For our philanthropic events, every single one of my vets are on our safety team, which is really reassuring because they're the last ones out of the building. They're the ones that are like setting up, safe zones, and they're calm when they're leading people down the stairs in a fire drill when there's an earthquake. So
Right.
these are the guys and gals that are right there, first
Leaders.
responders.
They're used
Absolutely
to being
leaders.
led and they're used to leading.
That's
so it's
right.
kind of wherever they are in the organization, they're being led and they're also leading.
Absolutely.
Eve, you got an event coming up.
I do, and you're invited.
Thank you so much.
And that leaves 99 spots for everybody else.
Got it. As long as I get one. So what are we doing at the event?
Yep, June 9th, we're going to be at the Corporate Alliance up at UTC. We're bringing Oracle, Microsoft, WD-40, Ashford University, and our good friend Dr. Patricia Riley from Cal State San Marcos. And we're going to talk about how companies can hire veterans, how they can keep them, and just best hiring practices around developing a veteran hiring program. It's going to be amazing.
Isn't she amazing?
She's best.
No.
Isn't she the best? Isn't
best.
she the Eve Nasby?
She's the best. And she's
That's why you're
the.
that's why you're the
Thanks,
Eve
you
Nasby.
guys. Thanks, Daniel.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming in here. Thank you for all you do.
Absolutely.
Eve, of course, thank you for all you do. And
Thank
good
you.
luck on your event and certainly the continued growth of your guys' radio show. 1170 AM KCBQ starting at 6 p.m. on Mondays. Thank you, ladies. All right, coming up next, Barbara McNally. First time we're having her on the show. She's written a book called Unbridled. So we're going to bring her into Operation American Dream here in just a moment.
Hi, my name is Min Lee. I live up in Carmel Valley, northern San Diego with my 2 kids and wife, and we had our solar installed by Baker Electric Solar. We went with solar because we wanted to be environmentally sound, but ultimately it came down to being financially sensible, and the prepaid lease was really the best option. There was only one payment up front, lock in all of our utility rates. We'll get our return back in about 6 or 7 years, kind of like a bond or a CD. We had no headaches, no stress to worry about. If you're thinking about going solar, now's a great time. Our electric bill is 0, and you can't beat that.
Welcome back. Now joining us in studio, Barbara McNally. I met her at the military ball a few weeks ago. Daniel, you were at that military ball.
Great event.
Yeah, we
Great
had
job.
Coronado, yeah, we had a lot of fun at that. But we met Barbara, and you have such a laundry list of accomplishments. You're a physical therapist. You've written multiple books. You do charity events, and you really focus on the spouse, correct? The wife,
The wives of Wounded Warriors.
the women. So thank you for all that you do in your service to the community. So let's talk a little bit about it. Let's talk about your book. So this is your second book.
My second book, yes. And this book, Wounded Warrior, Wounded Wife, I was inspired to write it because I was driving across the Coronado Bridge on my way to help the wives of Wounded Warriors, and the car in front of me stopped. The man got out and jumped off.
Right in front of you.
Right in front of me. He was young, in his 20s, good looking, clean cut, and I was like, oh my gosh. I felt like that was my impetus to really tell their stories and help the wives so that they can see these invisible wounds, so that they can find the resources. Because with a little digging, the man who jumped off, he was in his 20s. I found he was a wounded warrior, and he had a mother, he had a wife, he had children. And I wanted to take this horrific event and turn it into something positive.
That's twice today. We've kind of heard that the inception of something great was from a pretty traumatic experience. So you never want to see those experiences happen, obviously, but when you can turn them into something that ultimately can be good, that's great, and that's why we have you on the show. So tell us about some of the things you have going on. You have the Barbara McNally Foundation. So what is the foundation?
Well, I started the foundation from the proceeds of my first book, Unbridled. And now the main emphasis is Spa Day, and that's my signature event. It's support, purpose, and appreciation. So for the past 8 years at the Hotel Del, I've had Spa Day where the women come just to relax, rejuvenate, so that they can go back and care for their wounded warriors. And also when they come, they get all these resources and tools, learning about all the nonprofits out there to help them in their recovery.
You know what I have to say is there's a lot of thanks given to the military members. There's not enough thanks given to the spouses
Right.
that aren't of non-wounded warrior military members. And so to pay homage to them, I mean, they're like the unsung heroes of the world for me.
Right.
And so to do what you're doing for the, to go through what they go through and then have to endure, you know, their husbands being, or wives in certain cases, to go through that is really terrible. And I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
thank
it's.
you. I think we
And you're right. I do believe it's also the unsung hero too. And so, you have the spa day coming up, but you've been doing things like this for a while now. Give us
I've
some
been
examples.
doing it twice a year for the last 8 years.
Wow.
Because we forget that when someone we love is wounded, we're wounded too. And behind most wounded warriors, there is a wife. So her life has, yes, changed dramatically also. And so she wants to come and find out how she can adjust to these changes, to this new normal.
So give us some examples, some stories of some people you've helped.
Oh, well, my favorite is I call it.
You have a favorite?
Oh, I do.
Oh, bring the favorite.
Yeah, well, I have 20 stories in the book, and they were the most poignant and most heartfelt stories. Even though I've interviewed over 1,000 wives of wounded warriors, I picked the 20 top that were really inspiring. And my favorite is Lemonade to Margaritas, because the lemon was her husband came home a paraplegic. The lemonade was he's alive. But the margaritas was all the resources they found, like through Operation Homefront, they got a mortgage-free house.
Wow.
They found Patriot Paws to furnish their home. And more importantly, the inner resources. They grew as a couple, and she's now a spokeswoman for other women to help them find their resources. So I've found really inspiring women, and
That's a
they
good
inspire
one.
me to live more bravely and courageously.
How can we help you? How can our audience help you? Whether they've served or civilians like me, what can we do?
Well, I think just get the word out that if you know of anybody who's a caretaker, or but even if they're civilian, they could get all these resources through the book Wounded Warrior, or tell their spouse about Spa Day, and they could sign up to come to get a day of relaxation, a day to honor them, and also a day to find the resources.
How do you feel like we're doing as a community, in San Diego? How are we doing as a community in terms of taking care of spouses and overall?
That's a good question. Yeah, when I started this in 2008, it was, post 9/11, and there weren't a lot of resources. And working in the private sector too, when I worked in military, I found that there was a void within the military system to help the wives. Now there are so many resources. So there are a lot of nonprofits, and the VA has come so far. I know we're not perfect, but it's come a long ways. So my main point of Spa Day is helping connect these women with the resources out there.
Right.
What do you think, Daniel? I mean, you've served in the military now. Again, you run a very successful mortgage branch. That's very entrepreneurial. But from your experiences from when you got out of the military, as someone who's served, do you feel like the country's improved on giving the hand up?
It shocks me that in a lot of communities across the nation, you ask about the country, the nation in a lot of cases is very well behind the curve taking care of people. I think in San Diego, we're doing a pretty good job. There's always a lot to do, but in San Diego, we do a pretty good job with, like you said, some of the great organizations that exist.
And how about separating the government from like the private market and people like Barbara who do it from the goodness of their heart? Because there's obviously a difference between government money and funds that are raised from the public.
I would say that the vast majority of the amazing good that people are doing are from these nonprofits. And a lot of the things that are the struggles now is you can get too much going on and you've got a lot of noise.
Yeah.
So what you're doing in connecting people with great organizations that exist for specific purposes, there have to be those entities, and to our show, right, is getting the right entities in front of people, getting the right resources in front of people so they know exactly what to do.
And something that you've just learned from today's show is people like Barbara are specific. It seems like, I love that about the military charities and organizations. She helps the spouse, right? Eve Nasby helps specifically in
Employment,
work.
yep.
I don't want to mess the name up, but Hernán helps with manufacturing and
Jobs,
training and things like that.
And they're very collaborative too. There's an organization called the San Diego Military Families Collaborative where a bunch of different organizations are involved in the military family and collaborating. So San Diego is a real good example of how nonprofits work together in a way to really benefit overall.
So Spa Day's coming up.
Well, we just had one April 24th, and our
Okay.
next one is November 6th.
So another one
But
coming
it's
out.
growing all over the U.S. Last week I had one in L.A. I'm having one in San Antonio, Texas, one in Colorado. Because as you said, there's so many, San Diego's a great resource. But when they're discharged from the military or transferred, they've kind of lost some of that connection and bond. So my dream is to grow it all over the U.S., and that's happening.
Hey,
Yeah,
dream
it's
big.
exciting.
Thanks, Barbara, for coming on the show, and good luck with your events and certainly the book as well. Hopefully, we'll get some people to reach out to you online. All right, so Daniel, we got to wrap this thing up. Good show so far.
Let's do it.
Well, we're basically done now, but when we come back, we'll wrap it up, tease next week's show, and you're watching American Dream back in a minute. All right, so another great show, Daniel Lehman. What do you think, man? These
keep
guests
coming.
they make our jobs really easy. You know, I mean, these stories, they tell great stories, they're inspirational, and
I think it's really cool to see not just kind of what they're doing now, but really kind of this element of these events that are just, you know, that out of this bad, you can kind of create so much good for so many
that
people.
seemed like the theme of
that was the
today's
theme
show.
of today.
Which none of it is intentional. I want our audience to know how incredibly unscripted we are. We know who's going to be here, and all the conversations are authentic. I mean, we don't have much
Yeah,
here.
we mean to do that.
Yeah, we need to do that. And I don't know how to read anyway, so I mean, even if you fired up a teleprompter.
It's not because we're totally unorganized. It's just because that's how we do it, right?
Exactly. But, you know, that really did seem to be the common theme today of these. We heard some pretty horrific stories. I mean, that was pretty heavy with Hernán at the beginning.
Yep.
But any of the stories.
And
that
with
you hear
Barbara,
about
I mean, it takes a special kind of individual to take things like that and grow from it as opposed to shrinking from it.
Or the fact that Hernán had sold it. I didn't know he sold his home.
Sold everything.
Just
Some of
threw
these
it all
guys in the community, they're the kind of people, you see them driving up in something that shouldn't be on the road because they've committed everything to
Yeah.
what they're doing.
You used the term today, the unsung hero. I mean, these people have such huge hearts. We make them come on this show, and they want to get their message out, but they're the most modest, humble people you ever meet.
And they're people that you just cross in the grocery store. I mean,
Yep.
it's like I was thinking that about the Midway event when you were talking about the Midway event earlier. These Navy SEALs that are battle hardened, you just walk by and they're having a beer, and you'd never know who they were.
Yep. Well, good show, man. So before we let everybody go, I got to remind people that outside this show, you are helping veterans buy real estate, no money down, VA, the best option that exists. Anything new on that front, real estate front?
The new thing on that is I am done doing it myself. I need to take people in and mentor them and help them grow. I got a lot of great mentors from early on in my business career. It's time to grow that. So that's what we're going to do is build the division.
This is the community to do it in,
Yep.
right? I mean, there is enough people that have served that should be buying homes, getting that stability in their life, and the government gets that part right. You can buy a house with no money down. So Daniel, with your radio show, your TV show, if there's anybody who is watching today, you want to get some mentorship, get in a space, or if maybe you're looking to buy because you served in the military, this is the go-to guy. Daniel, thanks for being a great co-host today.
Thank you, man.
And that's it. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. Operation American Dream, we're out. We'll see you next week, San Diego.